Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this session. My name is Sergio Albani. I'm from the European Union Satellite Center. I will chair this session together with Alexia Fregnot from the CNES. So before to start, let me just spend a couple of minutes to provide you a bit with the context, to set up a bit the scene of this session. So let me just spend a couple of words on the so-called evolving security landscape. So today, security scenarios are becoming increasingly complex and cross-domain. Climate, food, water, health, and infrastructure-related challenges are no longer isolated issues, but more and more interconnected across regions and across sectors. So at the same time, decision makers are facing growing pressure to anticipate risks, to improve preparedness, and to support resilience planning in very rapidly evolving operational environments. And this requirements in terms of integration, coordination, and decision support. So, for many years, Earth observation has provided extremely valuable monitoring and situational awareness capabilities, but today, Earth observation alone is no longer sufficient. So today, the challenge is not only acquiring data, but also to transform very large volumes of heterogeneous information into actionable insights, supporting operational and policy decision-making. And this is where the concept of Earth intelligence becomes increasingly relevant. So by combining Earth observation, artificial intelligence, analytics, interoperable systems, Earth intelligence enables the integration of multi-domain information into more operationally relevant knowledge and decision support capabilities. However, despite these technological advances, the challenge is often no longer technical. In fact, today, many relevant initiatives, operational services, and technological capabilities already exist across different organizations and different communities. So the issue is often not the lack of data, platforms, or analytical tools, rather fragmentation, disconnected workflows, interoperability gaps still are the one limiting the overall operational impact and effective uptake of these capabilities. And this is why stronger coordination across communities, domains, and operational ecosystems is becoming more and more necessary. So this is precisely where initiatives like these ones within GEO can play an important role. And so let's move to the session of today. What we want to do is to explore how Earth intelligence can support climate and security-related decision-making, while also strengthening the operational coordination across GEO communities. So to do this, we wanted to bring together complementary perspectives, strategic and policy, operational and analytical, research and innovation, and finally, end users and operational uptake perspectives. So the session is therefore structured in a progressive way. We will start from the strategic framing, then operational examples, and then we will have a panel discussion focused on operational challenges, coordination needs, and future perspectives related to Earth intelligence and resilience. So this is a bit what we are going to discuss today with our speakers, and I will go for the first one. Ines Mendes, a colleague from the European Union Satellite Center, he will provide us with the first keynote. Ines, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So I will talk about a bit of our space security GeoConvener, but first I will give a first introduction of what is actually the European Union Satellite Center. So we are a EU agency. We are a council agency that it's based on Spain, in Madrid, and we are GeoInt service providers. This means that we provide geospatial intelligence to our users, that are mainly the member states, in order to support EU policies and programs. We also play an active role in research and innovation. We have a research and innovation unit, and we participate also in Horizon Europe projects and in cooperation activities such as GEO. Within GEO, we started in 2015 as a community activity, initially to collaborate with the GEO to foster the use of Earth observation for civil security purposes. After this, we evolved in 2023 for a pilot initiative where we demonstrated through Earth observation and some pilots that we develop on risk and resilience for societies. I will show them a bit later in the presentation as well. For the post 2025 work program, we have become a convener. And as a convener, we are basically linking and connecting all the focus areas that are related with security. As a convener, we try to address the increasing need for safety and security of societies by building a network platform that can, and we can cooperate for security-related activities. Of course, this we do among our stakeholders that are a cross-sector network within the GEO community. For the moment, we are the leaders of this convener activity, and we count with other 5 contributors that are ESA, WFP, EA Delft, the Eurogeo surveys, and more recently, we count also with the Instituto Geográfico Militar from Ecuador. Our main objectives can be summarized into these 4 pillars that are related with the dissemination and communication of our activities, engagement of stakeholders, and expansion of the GEO community, link the focus areas that are already existing within the GEO environment with security-related needs and services, and support cross-domain R&I actions. Our first 2 objectives can be combined together and are achieved combined through our participation in events such as the Eurogeo or GEO events like this one. Also through the promotion of GEO communication channels, like for example the success stories from Eurogeo that you can see on the Eurogeo website. And we do this also sharing our reports to share relevant methodologies, experiences, and outcomes that we had along these years. All of this to promote, of course, coordination among the communities and enhance also the integration of these different focus areas and the GEO community. Our third objective is to link these focus areas with related services. And we accomplish this by exploring Earth observation technologies and applying risk assessment and early warning capabilities in real scenarios responding to emerging needs like food, water, and climate security. An example of this link that we have already established can be seen in our pilot initiatives that we did in 2020 to 22, and then later on 2023 to 2025. These 2 pilots were focused on land subsidence. The first one had the objective of detecting subsidence caused by excessive underground water extraction. It was based on Pakistan. Later, we evolved this pilot to Ecuador, and we focused a bit more on the subsidence in critical infrastructures. Both these use cases, we have used a time series of Sentinel-1 data, so SAR data, and we have computed a differential interferometric SAR processing in order to understand the millimetric differences between each of the SAR image along the time frame that we were studying. Our last important objective is to support cross-domain R&I actions for security solutions, as we also participate in many Horizon Europe projects that are focused in cross-domain activities that are relevant for security. An example of this is, for example, is Atlantis, that is a project that developed an Earth observation process to protect critical infrastructures, and the project more recently, SDGs EYES, that was focused on estimating the number of people and houses affected by floods in the Sahel area. I leave here the reminder that we can possibly cooperate in these types of projects within the Horizon Europe program, so you can always contact us for these. And all these outputs that we generate through our pilots and through our research are used to feed our operational platforms such as GeoDAMP and SESDA Hub. That, of course, are accessible to our community upon request and can be used for their own activities and research. As a way forward, we would like to continue, of course, to raise awareness of the use of Earth observation for security and resilience, to foster cross-domain cooperation and synergies within GEO, and promoting also the implementation of Earth intelligence applications to support the citizens' safety. We also support the creation of a transversal focus area on security for GEO. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Ines, for your presentation. So I guess we can move to the second one again to set up the scene. And this one is from Frédéric Bretard from CNES. He will talk about the Spice Climate Observatory. Frédéric?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Frédéric Bretard. I'm working at the Centre National d'Études Spatiales, and I'm leading these international initiatives. I do hope you know the Space for Climate Observatory. And actually, this program is an international alliance that have been launched in 2019, something. So it has a couple of years, okay, after the One Planet Summit. Launched by the French government, the French President de la République. And the CNES actually took the opportunity to develop this international alliance. So we have a charter that has been set up in 2022, and now we have quite a lot of signatories. So with the SCO, we put climate emergency at the heart of our actions, with three main objectives that are creating a forum where public and private entities could discuss about the implementation of digital tools to help different users, different decision makers in their implementation plan for adapting their municipality, their city, their landscape to climate change. And the idea was also to foster cooperation about about the use of Earth observation data. So the originality is to mix up between public and private entities. So we have 61 signatories of the charter. 33 countries have signed the charter, 3 UN programs, 3 international organizations. We have tomorrow the 17th steering committee of the initiatives. So it's a very, very dynamic. Most of the representatives of the countries are the national space agencies, but it's not always the case. And we also have signatories that could participate to other activities. The working group, for instance, where we discuss the global awareness issues of our alliance. Back to this governance and to these international initiatives, the most important is the project. The project portfolio is a set of use cases, uptake examples, So we have 140 projects spread around 60 countries, many partners involved because it's a partenarial approach. And we tackle every thematics of climate change, which are forest fires, atmospheres, biodiversity, health, agricultures, etc., etc. So it's very rich. It's a pragmatic cooperation framework serving climate actions. So it is a knowledge exchange forum. So we showcase Earth observation data and the tools that will digest all these data, but not only satellite data, but in situ data a lot when it comes to deal with local adaptation solutions. We also provide concrete activities, so many meetings, webinars, technical workshops, and we try to understand, to organize the understanding of the needs of the different countries through the space agencies and find some consortium to help the creation of tools, digital tool. So we have many projects in our portfolio. Something like 80 projects are, I may say operational, but it's not exactly the right word, but it works. For instance, we have the EOP project online that has been implemented by UNEP Grid. But many of them exhaust. 80 of them are already, 50 of them are already finished. And so most of them are directly linkable on the internet. So you can type the URL and you will find the tools. And part of the portfolio are led by private companies for kind of climate adaptation services. So we need actually right now, our challenge is of course to take new projects into the portfolio, but also to extend what has been proven into some areas. So not only in the French territories, many of them are located in France, but also in Africa and elsewhere in the world. So the portfolio, if we look the portfolio through this, I mean, to stick to the session, if we look the portfolio through this slide, this time to present, so we can look the portfolio through this axis. We have a pool of projects for data reanalysis to understand past events. So we have Copernicus using these Copernicus data, Sentinel data, but also very high resolution data, Pléiades for French projects. Another pool of projects which are near real-time monitoring system to manage risks, and we will come back to this point. And some of them predict and mitigate consequences of climate change-induced situations. So under the IPCC scenario for flooding and different risks. What is of interest here is the near real-time monitoring systems to manage risk. We have 8 projects in our portfolio right now related to air pollution, Sargassum algae, so real-time detection of and prediction of Sargassum algae through the entire Atlantic Ocean. The Band SOS project related to cyclonic flooding on Bangladesh, Tropisco, real-time deforestation monitoring system with Sentinel-1 data. Very interesting tool that can be reached directly on tropisco.org if you have your computer. Operational hydrology in French Guiana, but also in the Mozambique Channel. Urban heat index on some area in France, and GADE-LAPLI, which is early warning systems located in IT, provided by a French company called Predict Service. And I prepared a 3-minute film that will show these project in particular. Does it work? Great. So it's in French, but normally it's written in English. But there is no sound. Sorry. They monitor the entire Earth real time. They are using all this satellite data, and they are predicting at half an hour the different meteorological events. So they work with the municipalities to define level of emergencies. Okay, and the most interesting in that you can subscribe directly with your phone numbers to the service, and you will be informed about what's going on in the area where you are located. And they are generating alert alerts that you can receive on your email, but also SMS on your mobile phone. And they're using infrared satellite image to predict local precipitations, so with artificial intelligence. So it works quite well. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Okay, so thank you very much, Frédéric and Ines, for this presentation. We will now move to the second part of our community event. So after these two insightful keynotes, we will discuss on how Earth intelligence can support operational decision-making, but also strengthen collaboration and coordination across different domains to better protect population. Indeed, so with the strategic context that has been showed by Sergio at the very beginning of this session and the two keynotes, we understood that Earth intelligence is becoming critically important to support decision making, but also to improve the capacity to anticipate, but also to respond to climate and security risks. So for these panel discussions, we are very pleased to welcome four panelists. So Thibault Valentin, who is policy officer of the thank you very much. Thibault Valentin, who is policy officer at the European Commission. Pascal Peduzzi, who is director of GRID Geneva at the United Nations Environmental Program. Dimitrios Mentis, who is lead of the Energy Access Explorer at the World Resources Institute. And finally, Hugo Aviles, who is director at the Instituto Geográfico Militar from Ecuador. So we'll be together for 35 minutes plus 10 minutes for questions and answer to better understand how your organizations are involved in Earth intelligence for security and climate resilience. I will co-moderate this session with Sergio Albani. You already met him at the very beginning of this session. And there will be 3 rounds of questions where we will explore institutional perspectives, but also operational challenges, and finally, the priorities for the years ahead. So we'll start with the first round of questions to better understand your organization's role and also give some strategic examples of your organization in Earth intelligence. We'll start with you, Thibault. So could you briefly present the role of the European Commission and also share any relevant activities, policies, or initiatives that are related to Earth intelligence for security and climate resilience?
With great pleasure, thank you. So for those of you not familiar, the European Commission is constituted of many directorates. 3 of them are involved with anything related to space. We have the directorate responsible for research, heavily involved with the GEO. We have the directorate responsible for defense and the space industry, defense industry and space, sorry, who is responsible for the EU space program. And I am from the directorate responsible for international partnerships, which is focusing on cooperation and development. The interesting aspect of how we work, how my directorate works on space is that we use the cooperation and development policy of the European Union to contribute to the internationalization of the EU space program. And by doing so, we work with partner countries to co-create solutions based on space data, most notably Copernicus, the European Earth observation component of the EU space program. And we use this tool that is at our disposal and the full, free and open data policy of Copernicus to help partner countries develop a solution that matches their needs. So we are governed by overall like 2 main policies. So on the cooperation aspect, we have the Global Gateway Strategy, which is about closing the investment gap between developed countries and the rest of the world. So we're trying to find ways to exchange good practices, do capacity building, invest in infrastructure to reduce this so-called investment gap. And on the space aspect, we're governed by mostly, for my directorate, the EU International Digital Strategy, which governs everything in the realm of digital, including space, because of course, if you want to do something that works on Earth observation, you need to ensure that you have proper communication channels, proper telecommunication. Because if you partner with countries and they have a need for historical data, that requires a lot of bandwidth. So we are also working on this connectivity aspect. But so when it comes to security and resilience overall, we understand security in the broader sense of the term. What drives the EU cooperation in the field of space is mostly civilian security indeed. So most of our initiatives throughout the world that we aim to make them regional all the time, less and less at bilateral level and more at regional level, is going to be related to civilian security, meaning disaster risk reduction. So we have a lot of initiatives, for instance, in Asia, focusing on ground motion monitoring with the use of satellite data. since Southeast Asia, as you know, is very prone to that kind of risk, be it landslides, volcanic activity, as well as earthquakes. It's the same in Latin America, where we have a huge framework to cooperate, and it focuses, I think, on hydrometeorological hazards. We also have an urban atlas for what concerns like city sprawling and the problem of heat spots. And also it's information that is very useful to better prepare for disasters. And most importantly, in Africa, we have this huge cooperation initiative, the EU-Africa Space Partnership Program. Sorry for the name, extremely long. There's a green pillar that is dedicated to enhancing services that support sustainable development and anything related to climate adaptation and mitigation. As part of this green pillar, so this program is over 100 million euros. As part of this, within this pillar, we have the SIWA project. So it's like strengthening early warning in Africa. And through this this program, which is made in partnership with other international institutions such as ECMWF and EUMETSAT, we're doing a lot of nowcasting, which refers, like, it's connected to the presentation we had earlier from our colleague. When you have real-time satellite data, that changes everything when it comes to preparedness and recovery of hazards. And I think I'm getting too long already for this question, so we'll have time to circle back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thibault, for this first policy dimension example and for these illustrations. Now let's have a look at the more environmental aspects with you, Pascal. How does UNEP contribute to Earth intelligence, and what key initiatives or projects would you like to highlight in these areas?
Thank you, Alexia. UNEP has a pretty wide mandate. It's to keep the world environment situation under review. And that under the environment, it goes from harmful chemicals, what molecule level, to plastics, to biodiversity, landscape, deforestation, climate, so from really local to global. So we don't have the luxury to concentrate only on one single issue. Issues are getting more and more complex. They are huge and at different scales. So UNEP has many different divisions, many projects to view all these things, but of course we need data. And in fact, when people say they need data, it's not true. They need information, because if you give them a raw satellite imagery, they don't know what to do with it. So our job at UNEP Grid Geneva is to transform data into information and link that with policies so that actions can be taken on the ground. Because if we stay at the data to information level, okay, we know, but then what? So we really have to make it all the way down to linking that with policies. So trying to advise member states what could be done and how it should be done, where it should be done in a timely way. So in terms of Earth intelligence, we are using satellite imagery, we're using GIS models, statistics, we have to design indicators, we have to enable people to discover this information. So we have data platform where people can search for this data, visualize it, interrogate it, download or connect it with full interoperability. And we are not a big data producers, we are actually big data users. So we are actually connecting to many data providers. And the beauty of that is that since now we have interoperability, you don't need to have the data in-house. What you need to have is a very good interoperability system to make this data part of your ecosystem and link data with other data, so that when the end users come to your website, you might need data from 40 different data providers, but it's all based in one platform where everything makes sense and is organized in a way that people could then make their decisions. So we are trying to enable this access to information, limiting the obstacles that make it as simple as possible, because we find some beautiful technology, very complex model, but at the end of the day, it's not necessarily the most complex one that are needed. Sometimes it's really basic information that is needed on the ground to alert people when we can have automatic detection of the deforestation, like we've seen in previous presentation. it has to be connected on the ground so that people can actually stop. The satellite will not stop people cutting trees on their own, but it can participate to alert them. So the connection is very important.
Thank you very much, Pascal, for this introduction on the UNEP Grid Geneva and the examples. It's very clear on the role of UNEP. Now I'd like to hear from you, Dimitrios, on a more research for decision-making perspective. Could you share the World Resources Institute's role and also any specific activities that are supported by WRI on Earth intelligence for climate and security resilience?
Of course, happy to. First of all, Sergio, Ines, thank you for the invitation, for having us. We appreciate the opportunity. Let me start with a question and hopefully get everyone's input here. Anyone from the US in the room? UK? Yes. France? Italy? Spain? Australia? Imagine the combined population in the countries I have just mentioned, living in complete dark when the night comes, 2026. 660 million people have no access to electricity today. That means no access to modern healthcare, no access to modern education, no access to modern livelihoods, no access to modern agriculture. The vast majority of those people live in Global South, Sub-Saharan Africa, emerging economies in Asia, parts of Latin America. The question we are asking is, where are these communities? And how shall they be best served in a climate-compatible manner? This is a critical development question we are asking here. And this is why we introduced the Energy Access Explorer at WRI in collaboration with over 300 partners. We've developed the first open source interactive geospatial platform, which synthesizes over 50 geospatial indicators on energy demand, demographics, social and productive uses of energy, power infrastructure, energy resource availability, data on environment, etc., and helps stakeholders with different perspectives to identify priority areas for energy interventions. Interventions that lead to climate-compatible socioeconomic development. As of 2024, this is the first digital public good. I'm not sure how many in the room are familiar with the term digital public goods. Essentially public goods which happen to be digital. We are familiar with libraries, with roads, with streetlights. These are public goods. Digital public goods include but go way beyond the open source criterion. So this is the first digital public good in the energy domain. It's also part of the first cohort of digital public goods for climate action. It is developed in 9 countries, covering 48% of the total unelectrified population globally. So there's certainly potential for growth. Over 40,000 users. Interestingly, almost 1 out of 2 users are women, which is not the share that we see in the various workshops, trainings, conferences we participate. So here we're talking about equitable access to software. It's being used by governments, businesses, civil society organizations, finance institutions in order to prioritize the allocation of climate investments using this data-informed approach. Fully agree with your intervention, Pascal. Data alone is not enough nowadays. There is so much data, typically scattered across so many different databases, sources, meeting different metadata guidelines. So there's an important role for many of our organizations to play here. Let me pause with this brief introduction, but thank you very much once again for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dimitrios, for these figures, because I think they illustrate very perfectly what has been said previously, for example, with Pascal, and also your words just after that. So finally, we'll hear the most geospatial and end-user perspective with you, Hugo. Could you introduce your organization's role as well and any relevant policies in the field of Earth intelligence, please?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. The Military Geographic Institute from Ecuador, IGM, Spanish acronym, as the official national mapping authority and plays an instructive role in the generation of geospatial information to support decision-making processes related to security, disaster risk management, climate resilience, and territorial planning. From the air intelligence perspective, the IGM transforms spatial data into timely and actionable information for government institutions and emergency response agencies. Among its main contributions is the generation of rapid response cartography for events such as floods, landslides, and oil spills, enabling the identification to affect areas, critical infrastructure, exposed population, and territorial accessibility. In addition, the IGM has participated in charter activation through satellite imagery processing and the production of cartography products to support the management of high-impact emergencies. In alignment with the principles of the Global Geo Group, the IGM promotes interoperability, the integration of geospatial information, and strengthening national capacities and fostering interinstitutional cooperation through the Geo Air Ecuador group. For this perspective, air intelligence is not only about technology, but also about institutional coordination and the generation of applied knowledge to engender resilience and territorial security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hugo. It's quite interesting to see how of your organization are working on Earth intelligence. So for the second round of the questions, I will give the floor to Sergio.
So thank you, Alexa. Thank you, everybody. So let's move with a bit more, let's say, specific questions from for our speakers. So let's start with you, Thibault. We are talking the first part of the question that you can see: how can Earth intelligence support operational decision making? What is today, according to you, the biggest obstacle preventing actually Earth intelligence from being more systematically integrated into operational decision making?
Well, thanks. Very interesting question from our perspective in the Commission. So we have a very institutional point of view, of course. We work a lot with our partner countries. What we can see also applies to Europe, for that matter. I would say it's mainly two things: the link between the technical level and the political level. So you need to ensure the main obstacle we encounter, and you can see it on many occasions, that very often the solutions do exist. The knowledge is there. We know where to go. We kind of know what to do, but we are struggling to ensure that this translates into proper policies that are, so we struggle to have the decision maker implement the right policy with the right kind of data. And it's something I think we need to work on, which is connected to the communication aspect, because if you manage to reach out to the right institution or the right person, that doesn't mean they're going to understand what you're telling them. The research environment, which is the one where solutions are usually found, is very much connected to academia, very much connected to the private sector. But that doesn't mean that once they have the solution, if they manage to reach out to the right person, that they speak the same language. It's usually not the case. I don't know. If right now you're meeting an astrophysicist, I'm pretty sure you're not going to understand much of what this person is saying if they start talking about their job, right? So lucky you. I'm not. So it's complicated when you have a politician to make them understand the technicalities, right? So I think these two aspects are very important. So you need to find the right communication channel first, the proper language. So you need, let's say, a middleman or an intermediary, but also you need to reach out to the right institution. So you need to map the environment, the political environment, how it works in a country or in a region. An example I have for Southeast Asia is that we have a big data center funded by the EU in the Philippines with 3 services that we co-created with the partner. The problem is we are in touch only with one single partner at national level, and we realized, I mean, it's many islands, a lot of them, I mean, they're very scattered, a lot of them are remote, and it very much work at it's not a federation, but it works at sub-regional level. So if you have an alert, let's say you have a warning for a disaster, the places that are well connected are gonna know. The main institution that have the capacity to have like engineers, or for that matter, astrophysicists, are going to be able to understand and to implement the right policy. But then that doesn't mean that this remote island is the people there, the local institution responsible for disaster preparedness it's not sure the information is gonna reach them. So yeah, these 2 aspects I think are key, and they translate in many of our initiatives, which is something we try to work on. Because once we realized this, again, the example I have for the Philippines is that we used another EU-funded initiative that focuses on connectivity to bridge this gap, because we realized the information was there. We managed to map the right institution, but it was hard to speak their language and to reach all of them. So then we had a second component, as I mentioned earlier to the previous question, on connectivity to ensure that this Earth observation data can be turned into actionable information. Yeah, that's pretty much the main obstacle that from the institutional perspective that we see when we have space cooperation initiatives in the realm of civilian security.
Thank you very much, Thibault. I'm an astrophysicist, so I hope that you're able to understand what I'm saying today. And so let's move to the second question. It's for you, Pascal. According to your intervention before, and also reinforced from Dimitrios, I understood that basically today, when dealing with climate and security risk, we are not facing a data problem, but more we are facing an integration and coordination problem. So, how can we do?
Yes, indeed, it is absolutely sure that we've made amazing progresses with Earth intelligence. We have so much data now and information available. It's interoperability is there. We can get that on our mobile phone. Everybody can access these kind of things. So on one hand, there's really large progresses that were made on Earth intelligence. On the other hand, there is a huge amount of progresses that were made in human stupidity. And I'm not sure that the progresses made on Earth intelligence were able to counterfact the human progress on human stupidity. And by that, I mean wars. I mean, things that we knew for 30, 40 years that were going to happen, that is actually happening now, surprisingly. That's something we've said already in the 90s that was going to happen. It is happening. Yes, we had that all on record, on climate change, on deforestation, on biodiversity. We knew all these things. And it's not lack of data. If that was it, then we could less being ignorant and not knowing about it. But the problem is, it's not lack of data. In fact, there was enough data available 30, 40 years ago to take enlightened decisions that would have bring us to another pathway. And now 7 out of the 9 planetary boundaries are overthrown, and including those that we could have done something about it. It's just lack of political willingness is one of the obstacles. Greed and corruption is another one. Short-term views. Decisions that are taken by people who can afford themselves to be protected from the consequences, either because they are rich enough, so climate is warming up, but I've got aircon, too much traffic, I drive an helicopter. Distance could be geographical distance, sea level rise. Well, I'm in Switzerland, it's okay. I mean, Maldives is drawing, but I live up in the mountains, no problem for me. Or distance could be in generations. This is going to happen and have more impact in 3 decades. I'm still safe for the time being. I think the main obstacles is not technology. is probably social psychology. I think data scientists have done their job. They've been alerting for quite some times. We've been trying to learn how to make our numbers clearer because, yes, we do adopt jargons. We do try to talk with margin of errors and kind of things like these, standard deviations, things that people don't want to hear. And we are actually talking to people who don't want to hear already. So we better talk frankly and plain English and make our message very straightforward. I think we've been learning to do that. There are progresses made by the scientific community to be able to talk in a clearer way. But on the other hand, they don't really want to listen. So I think the problem is more a kind of psychological problems that humanity is facing, because we can see at what speed now we can measure with more and more precision at what speed we're going to go against the wall. In the 1972, when we launched Landsat, we were able to monitor deforestation at 60-meter resolution. And then in 1984 at 30 meters, then came Spot at 20 meters, and then Sentinel at 10 meters, and Planet. And now we're down to 35 centimeters. Great, we're still measuring deforestation. We haven't stopped it. So the problem is not advancing resolutions per se, it's how we can connect this knowledge to actual actions. And probably we need to talk differently to people in a way that they probably get to their emotion. And so I think my job as a data scientist, I think my job is done. And the problem now is how to really improve wisdom in humanity rather than Earth intelligence. We can always improve. We can always have more data, but history have shown that this is not the main gap. The gap is in wisdom.
Thank you very much, Pascal. So you were mentioning the need, let's say, to move from knowledge to actions, let's say. And Dimitrios, before you were presenting a quite interesting, let's say, scenario we are currently facing. So my question to you is, okay, we are talking about, to react to some crisis, but why are today institutions still let's say, struggling to move from reactive crisis response to anticipatory resilience planning?
Yeah, this is an excellent question, and I'll try to add to what the two of you already mentioned, Thibault and Pascal. I see three reasons. There are more, but maybe I'll focus on three reasons why our institutions focus on being reactive as opposed to proactive or anticipatory. The first reason is that incentives, or plenty of incentives, to be precise, are structured around ex post response. Here I can give the COVID example that all of us are familiar with. COVID surfaced the importance of energy access, electricity access in healthcare facilities. How can we refrigerate vaccines without access to power? The question here is, why did we need to wait for a pandemic in order to act, since we had the information a long time ago about the importance and the linkages between energy and healthcare or healthcare services? So there are platforms, there are lots of advancements in Earth observation, Earth intelligence, etc. But oftentimes we see no agreed mechanisms to translate this evidence into funding which is touching on resilience matters. So that's the first is on fragmentation. There are so many platforms and tools and solutions which sound very similar. Climate, Earth, geospatial, open, data, analytics, insights. And these platforms typically reach the same end beneficiaries. Now, the end beneficiaries do not have unlimited amount of time to go through each and every solution in the ecosystem. And this has led to a confusion, understandably so. So we have a role to play here as a community of solution providers. If Pascal is going with a solution A and Thibaut with solution B, Dimitris with solution C, Hugo with solution D, to Sergio, who is the end beneficiary here, a healthcare department, a Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Climate. They all sound very similar. Now, this confusion typically, at least based on our experience, leads to a delayed selection of the technology that shall be deployed. A delayed selection leads in turn to delayed implementation. A delayed implementation leads to a delay in achieving the desired targets, energy targets, development targets, climate targets. So there is fragmentation, at least in our ecosystem. One more anecdote in this particular topic. We had developed a few years ago a research paper on integrated and inclusive energy planning in Kenya. And we were proud to share this with the main utility in Kenya, Kenya Power. And I got this feedback and response, which I will never forget. The following. Dimitri, you researchers are developing interesting tools, interesting papers, but let me tell you something. Unless you involve us in the design of those solutions, it's very likely whatever you are developing, however interesting it may be, it will not be applicable, it may remain irrelevant end of the day. So how to co-design solutions. So, sorry, Sergio, I'm going from the problem, the fragmentation, to some of the solutions, which is the co-design part. And the third point, governance and trust takes time. Most of the donors, again, at least in our ecosystem, would like to see outcomes or impact in the coming 6 months to a year. Trust typically takes longer to build. It may take 6 months, it may take a year, it may take 5 years to build trust and facilitate data governance. I'll pause here. That's a lot.
Thank you very much, Dimitris. I fully share actually what you are saying right now. Last question for you, Hugo, and most from the operational point of view, from the end user point of view. So currently, accordingly to your experience, what are the main operational limitations preventing end users to make the full usage of Earth observation and geospatial capabilities?
From the experience of the IGM as a geospatial end user, one of the main challenges is strengthening technical operational capacities to transform large volumes of Earth observation data into truly useful products for decision-making. Access to satellite imagery alone is not sufficient. Institutional capabilities are required to process, analyze, and interpret information according to specific operational needs. There are also limitations related to technological sustainability, processing infrastructure, time access to updated data, and permanent mechanisms for interinstitutional cooperation. In this context, GeoAir Ecuador Group plays a fundamental role as a national coordination platform integrating stakeholders from different sectors, promoting common standards and facilitating geospatial interoperability. Additionally, the absence of the formal statute for the GeoAir Ecuador Group has been identified as a challenge. This issue is expected to be addressed following this event in accordance with the guidelines and mechanisms to be approved in order to strengthen institutional sustainability, governance, and national coordination capacities in the areas of security, climate, and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these insights. So for the final round of this panel discussion, I would like us to look ahead and maybe focus on the priorities and also the different actions that are needed over the next 5 years. Especially on the operational of Earth intelligence for climate and security resilience. So first, I would like to start with you, Pascal. So first, thank you for your previous speech that was very impactful. So UNEP is at the forefront of global environmental coordination. In your view, what should be the top priorities over the next 5 years to strengthen the impact of Earth intelligence for climate and security resilience?
Thank you, Alexia. We are facing several risks. There are those planetary risks, like we're talking about climate change, biodiversity losses, chemical pollutions, and what we call the triple planetary crisis at UNEP. But there are other risks that we are facing on the current geopolitics with funding cuts that are decreasing our access to data on which we depend. So I think in the next 5 years, we need to actually don't take for granted that everything we used to have in terms of open data and access to all this data and information will necessarily continue if we don't put a real importance on securing access to data and information. So we need to make sure that we continue to monitor the planet, to have all different sensors. We are losing finance on science. We're losing finance on data acquisitions and monitoring. We also see very large actors privatizing the data, and we cannot let that happen because the data is our common good. Basically, the pathway to sustainable development is a very narrow bridge. And imagine you are driving with a car and it's the night and you have no light on, you have no beam, you don't see where you're going. But that's exactly what would happen if we don't have data. So the data is actually the light that will allow us to identify the narrow pathway to sustainable development, to make our scenarios, to see where we stand, where we've been, see the trends and see where we should be heading, and controlling if that direction is the right one. It's like a GPS. It tells us where we want to go, where we are, and how fast we're going. But if you shut down this access to data, we will be blind. So it is very important that we keep sovereignty access to essential data that we need for looking ahead for sustainable development. So we need to get free data for climate change monitoring, free data for biodiversity, pollutions, and so on and so forth. But also not only data and information, but the software that goes with. So we are definitely looking for open source software, open platform, getting our sovereignty in terms of cloud, because we cannot afford that someone somewhere could shut us down and then we don't see where we want to go. And that's something that in the next 5 years, I think will be very important, is to secure the fundamental, the satellite that we enjoy, that the information that we need, make sure that the data set, the essential data set that we need for gearing our policies are freely available to all, and data. So I think that's what will be very important in the next few years.
Thank you very much, Pascal, for this answer. Now I'd like to hear from you, Dimitrios. From your point of view, how do you see the priorities evolving to maximize the impact of Earth intelligence in these critical areas that are climate and security?
Thank you. Just a couple of things here. We typically hear that Earth observation, Earth intelligence, geospatial platforms, solutions are great. Or how many times have we heard the expression, nice maps, but what then, right? We would like to see an evolution where we are able to actually move from those platforms to be an add-on or a checkbox or be at the very core. So let's say a Ministry of Energy is responsible for developing a climate action plan or an electrification plan. There shall be a unit within the ministry which has the capacity to develop such plans. And this has to be a dynamic exercise, not a one-off exercise, which typically relies on solutions provided by yet another international organization or by yet another consulting firm, which gets outdated pretty quickly. So we would like to see Earth intelligence and solutions like the Energy Access Explorer, open source software, integrated into some of the operating procedures. We've seen this in some of the countries. Ethiopia is a bright example. Another thing which we are seeing and would like to see more in the future is a community of practice. We cannot task a small group of solution developers, in this case the Energy Access Explorer core team, with the sustainability of this particular initiative across geographies. So a local community of practice with those local champions embedded in these key institutions, including government and local academic institutions, which help us generate the next roster, the next generation of experts, is going to be critical. Here we are introducing the multiplier or the ripple effect. You train one person, but that person is not receiving training for themselves, but for their department, for their organization, and most importantly, for their country. A quick point, and I'll close with that, on the importance of public goods. We buy what we need. We buy what we need because there is this misconception that open is free. It comes with resources required to develop such open data and open tools. So we buy what we need. We own what we buy, and we share what we own. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dimitrios, for this explanation and this illustration as well. Now I would like to bring in Hugo. So your local and geospatial perspectives are interesting, but what concrete actions should be prioritized to strengthen the impact of Earth intelligence, especially in your expertise area?
Over the next 5 years, a key priority should be strengthening national geospatial coordination structures aligned with the principles of the Global Geo Group. In Ecuador, this implies consolidating national geo-framework as a permanent mechanism for interinstitutional coordination that integrates technical capabilities, geospatial information, and operational needs related to security, climate change, and resilience. To achieve this, it will be necessary to develop status guidelines and governance mechanisms that ensure sustainability, interoperability, and continuity in cooperation among public institutions, academia, the private sector, and international organizations. Likewise, national capacities in Earth observation, geospatial artificial intelligence, and operational product generation for decision-making processes must be reinforced. From Ecuador's perspective, the future of Earth intelligence will depend primarily on the ability to integrate information, coordinate stakeholders, and transform geospatial data into concrete actions that protect population and strengthen territorial resilience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hugo. And to close this round, I would like to hear from you, Thibault, and the European Commission perspective. So we all know that the European Union plays a crucial role in coordinating, but also funding some actions in these areas. So what, in your opinion, should be the priority to enhance the impact of Earth intelligence for climate and security?
Oh, thank you. I mean, I don't have much to add with what my colleagues already said. But connected to what you brought forward, be it the need for interoperability, public goods is a huge topic, and having open data. I think it's the role of standardization, because you cannot cooperate if you don't have the same type of data if you don't process them the same way. Because at the end of the day, we're stronger together, especially in that field when we try to fight climate change and its consequences. The problem with standardization is that if you go too far, you lose the flexibility that you need to adapt the data to the reality on the ground, right? So we need to find, I guess there's a threshold to reach in terms of processing the data in a way that you still have some standards that can be shared with the majority. So we, again, speak the same language, understand what we want to do with what type of data and what kind of solution we can implement with that kind of data, what kind of policy is needed. But we shouldn't go too far because then it becomes so micro that it cannot be replicable or duplicated to any other area. So I think the topic of standardization is quite big and connected to what has been said already. And overall, building on that from the institutional perspective, there's, I mean, the need for local ownership is, of course, it's a key topic when we work with our partner countries as the EU. So we think South-South, global South cooperation is also very important because at the end of the day, we might develop very fancy solutions in some countries, but what we don't have the experience on the ground, especially when it comes to DR, when to act best, what to do best. You have a lot of things. I mean, I don't want to go into the detail, but like some cultural sensibilities also to be taken into account, apart from the humanitarian aspect when we talk about DR. And building on that, synergies. I think, as you said rightfully, Pascal, like there's no lack of data. The data is here, so it's not that we need more services, because the more services we'll have, at some point, we're just going to duplicate what our neighbors are doing. So synergizing, ensuring we're complementary rather than doing the same thing over and over again. Thank you.
Thank you, Thibaut, for the last words. So we were supposed to have some discussions with the audience, but we are running quite late. So if you have some questions for the panelists and the keynote speakers, please feel free to come and talk with them. They should be available just a few minutes after this session. So our session is now coming to an end. So thank you all for being with us today for this session on Earth Intelligence for Security and Climate Resilience from Risk to Action. I think today's discussions really showed one key point. Earth intelligence is becoming increasingly important to help us better understand risks, but also anticipate them and maybe support more informed decision making. We understood that there are a lot of data available. We just have to work together and to make sure that they are not duplicated, the services are not duplicated. So through the keynote and the panel discussions, we heard different perspectives, so from European perspective, from international organization, research actors, and also operational actors, users. But we've the need first to better connect data and expertise, and of course to better threaten coordination. We also discussed an important challenge, so how to move from reacting to crises toward being more prepared ahead of them. And this is where Earth Intelligence can really make a decision and a difference if they are accessible and usable, even if there are some obstacles that are opening in these areas. Another important message from today is that collaboration in climate change, no single organization can address climate and security challenges on their own. Therefore, it's very important to strengthen collaboration and partnerships to better tackle these challenges. So thanks again to all our speakers and panelists for this session and for your contribution to this discussion. It was very interesting. Thanks as well to the audience for being with us today and for being very attention to what has been said by our panelists. And finally, thank you to SATCEN for coordinating this session with us. Maybe just one word regarding, I talk about collaboration and cooperation. The Space for Climate Observatory will organize a World Virtual Congress during the second week of COP31. It will be 1 week of webinars, so we'll organize different sessions to address the different challenges that have been tackled by different regions, for example, in Asia, in Europe, in Middle East. So we'll talk about different topics. If you're interested, please stay tuned. We'll start the communication very soon, and we'll be happy to have you during this 1 week of webinars. Thank you very much.